It is Friday, May 24th, 2024. This is another edition of Football Today. You know that dude. That is Bobby Skinner. I am Chris Rose. Justin Penik. Do you know his whereabouts?
He is in Charlotte. We don't know if he's going to the Motor Speedway for the NASCAR race or for the Donald Trump appearance. That has not been clarified, but that is where he is.
Well, listen. Whatever you want to do, I support you. Justin,
All right, I'm about to go commit crimes because Chris Rose supported me.
No. That's not what I said there necessarily. I come on now. Let's not push that. Producer
Do you want to
Mikey
know
is
who I
here,
voted
though.
for in the 2020 election?
I really don't care.
I voted for myself.
Oh, congratulations. Did you write yourself in on the ballot?
Justin Penik was the vice president. People did not like that. This year, I'm thinking of voting for either Kadarius Toney or my friend Juan.
Okay. I wonder who at John Boy Media would actually make the best president,
Me.
vice presidential ticket. Really?
Me and Justin.
Okay. You start that out. Let's print T-shirts.
We
of the
have
ticket.
stickers.
Oh,
I can pull
good.
some out right now.
No, you don't.
All right. I know you're probably hating me right now, but I'm going to pull out where are these stickers? Anyways, we can start the show. Here they are.
Okay, good.
Moving
That's
America downfield.
very cute. Very cute. Save one of those for me the next time I see you, which will probably be 2027 at this rate. Today we are breaking down yet another division. This time it's the AFC South. If we had said this a year ago, we'd be like, oh my God, we got to talk about the AFC South. But this year it's like, we get to talk about the AFC South. So that'll be an awful lot of fun. We had a ton of teams having OTAs this week, and a lot of veterans were there, and some of them stepped in front of a microphone. None more captivating than a four-time league MVP, Aaron Rodgers, who, of course, is coming back from his Achilles injury. Dude's been doing all kinds of podcasts, but he finally spoke to the football media. He said, quote, if I don't do what I know I'm capable of doing, we're all probably going to be out of here. I like that kind of pressure, though. In your opinion, are the Jets facing the most pressure of any team in the league this year?
You know, when I first saw the question, I was like, in the league, but they kind of are because their owner has essentially said, like, win or get fired for maybe not Rodgers specifically being gone, but like Joe Douglas and Robert Saleh, if they are not a playoff team, are gone. And hey, if they're a playoff team who has a first round exit that's ugly, they could also be gone too. So I actually, is there any other GM head coach who has just an ultimatum to win or get fired this year?
I tried to make a list, and I even had a hard time coming up with a bunch of head coaches that I thought were hot seat material. Like, I've got Dennis Allen in New Orleans, but let's be fair here. Like, what are the expectations for the New Orleans Saints this year? I mean, if they go anything other than like 8 or 9 and 7 or 10, like, you'd be like, oh, okay, really? Like,
And if they didn't fire him last year,
right.
there's a good chance they may be patient like this year, like you said, with the expectations they have.
Yeah. I mean, do the Giants have massive expectations? You tell me.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, like the Giants can win 7 games, and that probably would keep them safe. So again, every single other team, it'd be like, okay, let's have a nuanced conversation. Did we get our quarterback get injured? Did this happen? With the Jets, everyone could get injured, and those guys would still be fired if they lose. So I do agree that they do have the most like pressure on them.
Well, so do the Jets have more pressure than the Bills? Because if the Bills, let's say the Bills, maybe they don't win the division, but they make the wild card and somehow they get on this run and make it to the AFC Championship game. Like, is that good enough? I imagine it is. But if they win the division and they lose in the first round of the playoffs, like, don't they have some pressure to, even though that we both feel like talent-wise they've scaled back a bit? Isn't there
Absolutely.
pressure on them?
I asked Field Yates about that, but I think at the end of the day, Brandon Beane probably doesn't have a lot of pressure from ownership, right? I think his job is fairly safe, and I think he likes Sean McDermott and has Sean McDermott's back, and is not gonna throw him under the bus to save his own job or whatever. I don't think his job's in line. So even like if Buffalo misses the playoffs, then we're talking about a different story. But realistically, for what we think is going to happen, there's pressure. There's always pressure when you have Josh Allen as your quarterback to win and get a Super Bowl. But I don't think those people are really coaching for their jobs in a sense.
I mean, go through every team and just say if you feel like even the coach, not the entire organization, if just the coach is on the hot seat. I mean, I suppose Sirianni is a little bit because they took such a huge step back the second half of last season, and people feel like they're not 100% sold on him. I suppose he's like the next one in line, isn't he?
Yeah, and hey, his predecessor, Doug Peterson in Jacksonville, could be on the hot seat.
Yeah.
So you think of you start going to organizations that don't have the patience that are quick to move on from guys and you get to them. But again, though none of those teams have had their owner come out and give them an ultimatum like win or get out.
No, I mean, head to toe, they could clean house on many, many levels, the New York Jets, and I don't think it's close.
Yeah.
All right, OTAs happening in Houston as well, where there were several veterans that did not report. And once again, these are voluntary. They are not mandatory camp appearances. One of the noticeable absences, Stephon Diggs, a no-show. Is this a big deal or not?
No, because they are voluntary OTAs. It's not a big deal, but again, this is the Stephon Diggs show. You would like Stephon Diggs. It's his first year with this team. Training camp is limited. You would like to soak in the playbook and get on the same page as much as everyone. And he's not there. This is part of the Stephon Diggs show. This is part of why Buffalo was willing to lose cap space to get rid of him and make their team worse off without him. So as I speak more, I'm saying it's not a huge deal, but you can't tell me that DeMeco Ryans and Bobby Slowick aren't pissed off that he's not there.
Right. I mean, it's voluntary. And there are some other big names that did not show up. Daniil Hunter is not there in his first camp with the team.
Pass rusher is a lot different than a wide receiver.
I'm just telling you who's there and who's not. I'm not
Yeah.
here to judge. Shaq Mason, Laramie Tunsil, Titus Howard. We don't really know how his health is. But with all that being said, yeah, it is a big deal. In part because Stephon Diggs knows the noise that's around him. He knows it. He knows it. I think part of him enjoys it, to be honest with you. Some guys like attention, whether it's positive or negative. I think he's one of those guys. And he knows that he could have put an end to it by just showing up for a couple of days. He knows he could have said, hey, listen, I'm excited to be here. Now, he has done some work. DeMeco Ryans wanted to point that out, that Stephon Diggs has done some work in Houston. He said, we love his work ethic. We love what his makeup. We love what he's about. And we know exactly why we traded for him. But at the end of the day, he could have gotten in front of a microphone here and said, dude, I'm excited. Like, I know some of the words that were said about me in Buffalo, and I get it, but I'm done. Like, we had some great times. Me and Josh Allen, we got close, but we didn't get to the point where I want to get with CJ Stroud. Now, if somebody could say, well, he might have a family thing. He might have had a vacation booked. I get all that, and it's his right.
If he did, they would be PRing the shit out of it. Oh, he's with family. He's with family. He's got this going. So it's part of pain in the ass wide receiver life. It's not always some one grand big thing. It's just a bunch of little things that annoy the shit out of you. So welcome to Houston. Houston, welcome to the Stephon Diggs show. You should still be excited about him, but this is pin number one of that's kind of annoying.
So do you think that we will see more of it?
I think year one they'll be fine. I think year one is fine. If all bets are off after that.
Well, isn't he non-guaranteed after this year?
Yeah, that's why I think year one is going to be fine because we're trying to make some money around here. We don't have a bunch of job security. So unless you're Antonio, like the pain in the ass wide receiver is usually on their best behavior year one, unless you're Antonio Brown, where he's just like, I don't want to wear this helmet. When he went to the Raiders, and even then it will leak through, right? If Nico Collins and Tank Dell are getting more targets, you'll see some Stephon Diggs issues.
Okay. Lamar Jackson, he was at Ravens camp and appeared much, much leaner. Now, he wouldn't say exactly what he weighed. He said it was 2-something. Well, in a video posted by Complex Sports last week, Jackson said he was 230 pounds back in the 2022 season, trimmed down to 215 last year when he won his second MVP. And there are reports that he is as low as 205. He wanted to have that elusiveness. I don't know. I've been watching Lamar Jackson ever since he set foot in the NFL. I don't think he needs more elusiveness. Like, what does he want to be, a ghost?
Well, here's the thing. In 2022, he did look a little bit slower, like you said, when he bulked up. And he ended up getting hurt that year, too. So I kind of like it for Lamar. Like, I think Slim Lamar is the best Lamar. He does a good job avoiding those big hits for the most part. So I like it. Get him as fast as possible. So I like Slim Lamar.
He does have a little bit of the Barry Sanders ability, where, like, I can't remember one enormous hit Barry Sanders ever took in his career because he was so good at avoiding the monstrous collision. It just feels like the only time that Lamar ever really gets, knocked around a little bit is when he's standing in the pocket, but not when he's on the move.
Oh, when he's on the move and he's running, like he's excellent at avoiding those big hits. So, but and he played really well in 2022 as well. But you notice, like, he's lost a tick of speed as he's bulked up. So I kind of like him getting slimmed back down.
When do you think he's going to stop being a great runner?
That's a great question with him, right? Because now he's gotten so much better in the pocket to where, like, he's not as reliant on it as he was like that first MVP year. But it is interesting, like Cam, right? I think Lamar has been much better than Cam. Obviously Cam had that great MVP year, but just overall is there a chance Lamar falls off fast at 31, 32 years old?
Did you think when he first got the full-time job, were you like, oh, this is going to have a short shelf life? Or were you like, man, I'll be curious.
I was a hater. I mean, that rookie season was bad. And at that point, we had, like, the NFL, we talked about on our next episode about it. The NFL has started to evolve to, like, help these guys in their, early years get along while they may not see the field super well. And, like, he did have accuracy issues, right? And it was the whole Mike Leach line, right? Like that, and rest in peace, infiltrated our brain, where he's like, I can't teach accuracy, right? I got a better chance of taking the shortstop and turning him to a good quarterback if he's accurate. I can't teach accuracy. So I kind of viewed that, and it turns out you can teach accuracy, right? It's why a lot of people weren't in on Josh Allen his early on. So I didn't think it was going to work out for him, because the rookie year, even though they won games, was like, okay, this is not sustainable quarterback play. And you didn't think he was going to get more accurate, but he definitely did, obviously.
I think that he is just one of the tremendous case studies that we've had in the last several decades in the NFL. I was working the combine when he was there. And there was obviously there was a lot of talk about him not having representation, which he still doesn't to this day. But more so than that, remember, there were people that wanted to work him out as a wide receiver. He's like, I am not a wide receiver. And there were some old heads who were like, dude, you do anything you can to get to the NFL. You might want to play quarterback, but if they tell you to go be a receiver, go line up and be the next Slash, be the next Cordell Stewart. Go do that. And he was adamant. He's like, no. He said, I just won the freaking Heisman as a quarterback recently. Like, I am going to be a quarterback. I'm going to come into this league, and I'm going to kick everybody's ass. And guess what? It's happened.
Yeah, I wasn't on the hater level of saying that he should be wide receiver, because, like you said, he was great at Louisville. But the NFL, like, as a whole, like, people say, oh, well, the Ravens passed on him twice in that first round, right? If you believe someone's gonna be a franchise QB, you usually don't pass on them and then pass on them twice. They passed on him twice, and ended up working out for them. Like, Lamar has kind of, like, helped guys along where it's like, okay, we can kind of take on someone who's not the perfect prospect right away and has all this athletic ability.
And I know that he's in my favorite team's division, but I love watching Lamar. Like, I think he's fun. I think he's great. He seems like a really good, I don't know him at all, right? I've interviewed him one or two times, but he seems like a good, fun kid. And I think he's done a lot right since he's been in the NFL.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that 2019 week one just beating of Miami was like the oh shit, this actually can work and
Yeah.
it can be better than anybody else's in the league. Obviously we don't think he's the best QB in the NFL, but I think we all put him in the top five. Um, and top two, top three for whoever depending on who you're asking. We got to do a QB ranking show. So yeah, but yeah, a guy who can run like that, make all the throws, make throws on the run, create. And he's gotten consistently better throughout his career too.
All right, let's get to today's divisional breakdown. We are focusing on the AFC South. Came right down to the final game for these division teams. Let's start out with the defending champion, the Houston Texans. An amazing first year there for C.J. Stroud and D'Amico Ryans. True or false? Not only are the Texans the team to beat in this division, they also have the best group of offensive weapons in the AFC.
I would put them at number two behind the Dolphins. I think the Dolphins are just a little bit high. Here's what makes me want to say the Texans though. Dalton Schultz, right? I'm maybe Dalton Schultz's biggest fan for a long
Yeah,
time
you
running
love
at
him.
this point. Like he is so good, yet still like never gets talked about in the tight end conversation. Obviously, he's not Kelsey or anything, but that pulls me in the favor of Houston a little bit. But I still put Miami ahead of them. Um, I'm really excited to see what year two of Houston with CJ Stroud, Bobby Slowick looks like because see how does the NFL adjust to them, and then how do they adjust to the adjustment?
So when we're talking full set of skill guys, yeah, I agree with you that I think Miami is a little bit better. Um, Odell's going to be really interesting down there
He's
because
not he's not factoring in it for me.
he's not at all in terms of wide receiver depth for you because
He,
Waddle gets
he's
banged
not
up.
moving the needle, is what I'm saying.
Waddle does get banged up occasionally.
Yeah, Braxton Berrios is a great fit in that Miami offense.
So you're saying he's going to get more targets than Odell?
Yeah, I actually do think that.
The difference to me, the biggest difference between Houston and Miami is the ground game, right? I mean, Joe Mixon did come over in a trade, and that's going to help him. Dameon Pierce, who knows what's really happened to him since his rookie year, where he was very explosive on a poor team. But Miami, they actually added where Jalen Wright came in and was a fourth round pick, I think. And that was somewhat surprising that he fell to them. So they've got all that speed, and they add a guy who I think can be really, really productive at this level. So I do think it's Miami, but I do. Did you answer whether or not Houston's the team to beat in the division?
They are the team to beat.
No question.
Yeah, I mean, with the quarterback, like if you want to argue Stroud versus Lawrence, go at it. But it's at least Stroud is beat. I actually tweeted out a poll. I was like, who do people think? And I think it was like 90% think Stroud's better. And we'll talk about when we get to Jacksonville. I mean, the roster is just more talented overall.
There was one other team that I thought about putting as the top skill team, the Cincinnati Bengals.
I thought about them too. So it's those three. Um, we'll see what Cincinnati does with their running back group.
I actually like Chase
They lost
Brown.
Tyler Boyd, which hurts a little bit more than people will give credit for.
Yeah, as far as the ground game goes, I like Chase Brown. I know he got sprinkled in. I mean, he barely played the first half of the year because of an injury, but I kind of like the combination of him and Zach Moss.
I want to see more out of Chase Brown. Zach Moss, I'm not the biggest fan of.
Okay,
And I don't like their tight end room, even though Joe
no,
Burrow's going to make them look good. I hate that none of these guys can. Drew Sample can block a little bit, but you have Mike Gesicki, who's like the ultimate just run in a straight line and that's it. Tanner Hudson, who's like an athletic guy, and then they drafted one Eric All out of Iowa, who fits the bill. Who I actually think if he can stay healthy, can be the best tight end in that group.
yeah, I agree with that. I agree with that. It'll be really interesting to see. All right, let's move on to the Jacksonville Jaguars. Down year for them after making the playoffs in 2022. And with the Texans' arrival, does Jacksonville feel kind of like an afterthought? And if so, is that a mistake?
They shouldn't be an afterthought, but I truly think they're so reliant on Trevor Lawrence being great. I like look at that roster and tell me the great players. Josh Allen, Cam
Mm.
Robinson's a really like a top one of the best tackles in the game. I like Tyson Campbell a lot in 2022. He had a bad 2023 at the corner out of Georgia. Who are these like really good players that you build your team around? They got solid players, around the board, but they don't have that guy. Like, and once Lawrence got hurt last year, their team fell apart. Right? They were 8-4 at one point. Trevor Lawrence gets hurt. He had 7 interceptions and 4 fumbles in those last 4 games, and they went 0-4. Like before that, they were 8-4 with losses to Kansas City, San Francisco. Did those teams do well last year? Cincinnati, um, and then Houston.
Don't forget they lost to Cleveland too, somewhere.
But I'm saying that was after Lawrence got hurt.
Yeah.
Remember that was the game where Lawrence wasn't supposed to play and he ended up playing. Now he played shitty. Now there's a question about that too: is how well do you play when you're playing through injury? And Lawrence did not answer that question well. Like showed the toughness button, but he didn't. He played really bad. I watched that game from start to finish, and he played awful in that game.
Sure did.
But like he elevated a group of like Ridley again. I think has been one of the most overrated wide receivers in the NFL for a while. He's good, but he's 1,000 yard. Christian Kirk is pretty solid. Evan Ingram's been really good with him, but Evan Ingram's not a star despite the fact that he's being paid like one. And then they had a bottom 3 run game in the NFL. Like
All,
and now we got this weird cast of characters again with Brian Thomas, Gabe Davis, and Christian Kirk.
weird cast of characters. You're not a Brian Thomas guy, huh?
No, I like Brian Thomas, but I think he's going to need some time, and he shouldn't be thrown into that number 1 role right away. I think he has success. But Gabe Davis, who was the ultimate like 120 yards or 0 yards in a game, I think he'll do well with Trevor Lawrence. And then Christian Kirk is really solid too. So I think Anton Harrison is like actually one of the biggest keys for this team because they have Cam Robinson. They've brought in Mitch Morse. I think Anton Harrison, the rookie right tackle they drafted last year, we saw him get better at the end of the year. If he can keep up that upswing, I think that can do wonders for this offense. Because if you give Lawrence time and keep him upright, he can do some awesome stuff with this group.
Did either of us mention Trayvon Walker?
No, we haven't talked about their defense a ton. Walker had a good year, but again,
It was a quiet double-digit sack season. Quiet.
Which is crazy because you think if that guy had double-digit sacks, it'd be the biggest FU tour to the media in the world. But we went and watched it. Like, okay, this is not like dominant edge play.
No. And the guys they could have had, it felt like when Trayvon Walker got drafted, we were all like, really? Like he's the number 1 pick? Like almost.
I mean, a lot of people, including myself, didn't think he was a top 10 player in that draft.
Oh, you had him outside the top 10?
Yeah, I mean, he just didn't win at Georgia. Right? Everyone's like, the scheme. I was like, I've seen all these Georgia pass rushers. Yes, within their scheme, they aren't allowed to freestyle, but they had success that he didn't have. Obviously, it's a huge bet on his talent. He's done I think everyone in Jacksonville agrees that he'd probably be better off not playing true edge rusher, like playing that interior kind of, hey, like someone in Jacksonville, like trying to work into a Calais Campbell role. Obviously, not going to have the Calais Campbell's level of success, but play that type of role, like 5 technique for a team. And then they're just a team that isn't filled with great players, but with some, they've got average to above average starters across the board. So, and I think when you have a quarterback like Trevor Lawrence, you can live with that as long as he's healthy.
You know what they've fallen into a little bit? They're boring. They feel boring. And that stinks. They're definitely the 3rd most interesting team in the division. And they can thank Tennessee for not being 4. Even
Tennessee, I think, is pretty damn interesting in all of this too.
Yeah, I guess. We'll get to them momentarily. But let's get to the team that finished 3rd last year, the Indianapolis Colts. Bring along Anthony Richardson slowly at OTAs. Of course, he had the shoulder surgery that cost him 3/4 of his rookie season. Does the second-year quarterback need to alter his style or not?
So I watched every Anthony Richardson throw in preparation for this because I was like, I want to have a really well-informed opinion, and only have to watch 100, less than 100 throws to get that fully informed opinion. You can't. If you ask them to change their style, you're getting rid of the reason you drafted this guy. Like he's not being used as a runner as much as Jalen Hurts. Like, or I guess he's similar, but like early Jalen Hurts was getting a lot more. I think he might just be injury prone. Like he showed up at Florida a couple times. Like he had 4 rushing touchdowns. They were all design runs. And the passing stuff, like you can see how it can get there. But right now, could we just say who we interviewed for Monday or Tuesday?
Yes.
We talked to Kurt Warner, and it was the ultimate, like, how like quarterbacks have brought along where, yeah, did Anthony Richardson look pretty solid? Yeah, but they didn't ask him to do much, right? He never got to the backside of his reads and the all those plays that I watched. Um, he was very much like, okay, get the ball out quick, take these quick, easy throws, and then you'll have a deep, throw here or there. So you kind of need that running ability to get him along while you're playing him.
Well, he had an interesting quote about it because they talked to him at Colts camp about, do you need to alter your play? They asked the question we just asked. He said the one time with the one concussion, that was completely on me because I slowed down by the end zone, and you're never supposed to do that. Everything else, it just happened because we play a dangerous game, and there's nothing I can do about that. But necessarily changing my play, he said, I don't think I'm going to change it, but being smart, knowing when to get extra yards and knowing when to get down. To me, that's the key. That's the key. Nobody wants him to change exactly who he is, like big picture here. But there are plays. We all do it as NFL fans when we're watching a game and we're all yelling, get down, slide, get out of bounds, whatever. We all yell at the TV. We all do it. He needs to have a voice in his head yelling the same exact thing. At some point, the extra yard that you get is not worth the punishment you're about to take. I yell at Josh Allen, who's now starting year 7. I don't think he's figured that out at all. I was screaming it at the top of my lungs with Joe Burrow from day one. I was like, because that guy is not the physical presence that Allen or Richardson are. I was like, please save yourself. Like, you've got to live to see another play. Every year, Aaron Rodgers is at the top of the board in terms of balls thrown away. Always. Because he's smart. He doesn't want to take hits. He just doesn't. And I know that it's, he's 40 years old. These guys are, in their early, or I guess in Allen's case, later 20s. So they probably feel like they could take on the world. But man, it is a part of the learning process, but you've got to learn it earlier, because if you don't learn it early, there might not be a later.
I agree when it comes to scrambles, but design runs are a big part of, and when you're running design runs, there's just not these opportunities to slide the way there is when you're scrambling. Like when you are just running a design quarterback run, you're very rarely in a position to slide unless you break one for 20, 25 yards.
Okay, so if that's the case, should we ask Shane Steichen, should you change the offense to protect Anthony Richardson from himself?
You can do it a little bit, but if you have to install that stuff for him to be the best version of himself. Like this is part of his game. And the question, I don't know if it's necessarily, it's because he's taking the hits, or maybe he could end up just being a guy who's injury prone, despite the fact that he has that size. Like you go look at the run where he sprained his AC joint, and you're like, there's nothing he could have done to avoid this besides just not running the play the way it's supposed to be run.
Except that you don't know if that last shot that he took is because of the wear and tear that he had, the other shots that he took that may have loosened it. Well, we don't know.
That's fair. It's just you drafted him to do this. That's why he was drafted top 5 and not as a second round pick, is because he has this athletic ability and his ability to just run stuff with. And again, 4 games, he had 4 design run touchdowns. Like it's huge for like to take that away is like taking away, 7 points a game possibly.
Well, this is the closest thing we've had to Cam Newton, right? We can agree on that just because of the sheer size aspect.
Yeah, this is. Yes,
right.
Absolutely.
So why isn't Cam playing in the league any longer? And Matthew Stafford, who was taken 2 years ahead of Cam Newton is still zinging the ball around. It's because Cam really never learned how to flip his hips. He just did so much athletically that he was so gifted. Like, it wasn't so much injuries with Cam, although he did take some shots, obviously, a little bit later in his career. I mean,
He was probably the worstly officiated quarterback too, where they just like never would call a flag on him either. It was crazy watching some of the shit that happened.
That is true. That is true. But do you ever worry that that's what ends up happening to Anthony Richardson too? That because he's so big that we're just going to be like, oh.
I think it's the biggest worry with Anthony Richardson is the health, because you watch him, like I said, there's some rawness to his passing game, but you see like good signs of like, and you saw that Florida too, despite such a limited sample size. Like, oh, this is some good quarterback play, right? I see young quarterbacks who are the pocket pass and stuff who aren't pulling the trigger on some of this shit, and he does it. So there's like a great quarterback inside Anthony Richardson, but can we stay healthy as we get to that quarterback?
Good question. All right, last one. We got the Titans. New coach, lots of new players. Not a ton of hope, feels like. Is it possible that Tennessee ends up first on the clock in time for the draft in 2025?
No, I think there's too much talent on this team. You got Jeffrey Simmons, L'Jarius Sneed, DeAndre Hopkins, Calvin Ridley. Like, I know Hopkins isn't the player he once was, but he was really good last year. Ridley's, really good receiver. I think Boyd is going to be huge in that offense coming over with Callahan. Even Chig, the tight end, I don't know how much a great of a fit he is, but I like him. You drafted offensive lineman back-to-back years. Add, Bill Callahan. I think there's too much talent. I think Tennessee is in a perfect spot to not just set up, oh, this is an easy system for a quarterback, but I think there's plenty of talent in that roster to where after this year we can get a good feeling of what Will Levis is.
Are they a bottom 5 team?
I put them 24th in the power rankings, and that is Will Levis dependent. Now they don't have a bunch of depth all over the field either, so they could get hurt. We'll see how the running game is, losing Derrick Henry and then having Tony Pollard there to go with Tyjae Spears. We could be underestimating how much the run game could take a dip without Henry. But no, I don't, unless everyone gets hurt, I don't think they could be any consideration for the worst team in the, number 1 pick.
Yeah, the only thing that, in my opinion, that could kill them and make them fall like a piece of lead in the ocean is injuries to that offensive line. I saw it up close and personal.
It was awful last year.
It was a disaster. Holy smokes. I felt like they were playing with 3 turnstiles up there. It was horrible. So, they did add J.C. Latham, right? And we'll see if he can make the transition from one side to the other. They did add Lloyd Cushenberry in the middle. So at least you get a veteran who is, I think he's going to be better than what they had last year. We'll see.
And you got Bill Callahan there coaching them, right? We saw what he did with Cleveland last year with all the injuries and just his entire NFL career as an offensive line coach. So, I think coaching staff wise, they're in good hands. And again, like I don't look at this team like, oh gosh, look at the roster. Like, I see talent. Like, Jeffrey Simmons is one of the best players in the NFL. Like, he's so fucking good. L'Jarius Sneed, we all know what we think of him. Like, you get yourself a nice wide receiver trio of Hopkins, Ridley, and Boyd. None of them blowing you away, but it's like that's a solid group. And again, I think by the end of the year, I'm going to have a definitive opinion on Will Levis. I'm not going to be like, oh, I don't see him in this system or with this talent. Like, at the end of the year, we should know what Will Levis is.
Which way are you betting? Are they in the quarterback market next year?
I'm going to say they may not be in the market, but I don't think he's going to set himself apart, right? He likes to chuck the ball down the field. Guy has the highest average depth of target in the NFL, but to run this offense, you're going to be a good quarterback. You can't just be throwing it down the field. That's how you end up being Drew Lock. So I think by the end of the season, Will Levis we won't look at as a franchise QB. But I could be wrong. There's a ton of fucking talent there, and it can be molded. And I would like to be wrong, because I think they're if Will Levis is good, I think they're closer to second place in this division than they are, like you talked about, being a top 5 draft pick.
Okay, I think that's fair. I think everything what you said is fair and in play this year.
I think they are the ultimate, like, if there was a team where it's like, hey, this team's talked about as a bottom 5 to 7 team in the NFL, but they could make the playoffs. To me, that's Tennessee because they have the swing of a second-year QB, a new coaching staff, some solid talent across the board. Like this Titans team, I know it's Vrabel's gone, but they've been a team that's always like kind of went above and beyond their talent, and I think the coaching staff now is going to put them in similar situations.
I'll say this: the division, and I said at the top of the show, the division has made a quick 180 in terms of interesting, being an interesting division. We went into it last year saying, God, we got 3 new quarterbacks. We don't know what this thing is going to look like. And a bunch of young head coaches. Where are we going? And now all of a sudden you're like, oh, the AFC South, not terrible.
Oh yeah, this time last year I'm like, hey, I think the Jaguars are going to win the division, but I don't really like them that much. But it's just such a horrible division; they're going to end up winning it. They got close, but they went 1-4 in their last 5 games.
Yeah. All right. We are back at it again next week, where we do have our special guest, the Hall of Fame quarterback Kurt Warner, mi amigo from NFL Network, who does an amazing job, obviously, breaking down quarterbacks. I mean, I don't know anybody that watches as much film as that guy. So he'll have opinions on just about anything we throw his direction. We cannot wait. Penik will be off, still vacationing through the Galapagos Islands or wherever he's going to be. Hopefully he'll be back in time for your presidential run.
Oh, he will. He's getting ready for it.
Awesome. For producer Mikey, who does an amazing job around here, and Bobby Skinner, I am Chris Rose. We will see you next Tuesday with Hall of Famer Kurt Warner here on Football Today.